one really big difference between startups and large corporations is dependency. There's no one else. Like, it's either you doing the job or the job isn't done, because your team, your capital, your resources, they're scarce in startups. So it's really dependent on your ability to actually perform. Whether in large corporations, you might have an impact if you underperform or if you don't execute at the level that the company requires, but your impact will be much more marginal. While in a startup, it's going to be much more apparent. I think the second difference is the responsibility and the accountability. Responsibility, because you tend to get much more in your plate than you would get at a large corporation, because the rate is much faster at startups, and the requirements of jobs being done is also much heavier in startups versus large corporations, which tend to be machines already working that are looking for marginal incremental innovation. So the responsibility that you get at startup is 10x larger than, I might be saying too much, but like it's larger than large corporations. And that comes with accountability, which is connected with the first point. As it's basically on your shoulders to deliver, you're much more accountable with your performance versus a large corporation. And the third and last thing, I would say, it's speed. The speed at what things happen and how the development of what's the next stage of the company is much, much faster. Because large corporations have been working in a certain way for a long time. That's why they're large. And even though they might be trying to reinvent themselves, it takes time, because it's a very large machine that's trying to move, and they can't break because all their business is reliant on the way they've operated for a long amount of time, while a startup doesn't have that long amount of time in the past, so their future is much more agile. The way they face their new challenges, the way they reinvent themselves is definitely faster. So that means your life will also be different, because you need to be as fast or faster than the company at reinventing your own job, at reinventing your own skills, at making sure that you're contributing towards the speed that the company requires. So I'd say these are the three main differences. One of them is grit. In other words, is your constant requirement of being a hustler, of trying to find your way around a lot of obstacles that maybe large corporations don't have. These obstacles might be external. For example, large competitors that exist in the market and customers that are used to engaging with their solutions, and you're trying to do things differently. So you have to hustle through customers to show them that your way is much better, in case it is. And internal obstacles like the lack of processes, the lack of capital, the lack of people, and that it basically either happens and the company succeeds or it doesn't happen, and you have to hustle your way into making sure it happens so that you can succeed. So in my view, this grit is something that you kind of get at startups, because there's no other way to operate and compete with either a lot of other startups that are trying to tackle the same problems as you, or other large companies that are already in the market and are trying to serve the same customers that you're trying to serve. Another skill that you tend to get is, well, you don't get this skill, you're forced to have this skill, which is optimism, because every single person outside the company is probably telling you it's not going to work. Because if you're trying to do something new, if you're trying to tackle a problem that's been solved for a long time in a different way, they're just going to say, but this isn't the way things are. And you're going to hear this a lot. So you need to be inherently optimistic about the way that you're doing things is actually going to change everyone involved in the problem you're trying to solve. So I think optimism is sometimes something that's very secondary, very inconscient at large corporations, because you kind of don't need it on a daily basis, while in startups you do need. So it actually becomes a skill, because then you use that optimism to recruit, to find talent, to design strategies, to actually sell your story into the market and show why people should give you a chance at solving their own problem. my advice is maybe even before starting up your own company, which is by itself a big endeavor, find a growth stage startup. A startup that is, whether abroad or in your home city, find a startup that's looking for market fit, that's probably growing, that's hiring, that's tackling a big problem, a big market, and that will actually teach you the way to build a startup, that will expose you to the challenges of what starting up means, and go there, try to join the company and soak as much knowledge as possible. Learn everything, learn especially the failures and the mistakes and the errors that they'll take to grow. Learn what could have been done differently, what could have been better. Learn how people dealt with the situation. Learn the emotional part of building a company and dealing with people, especially very young people that are maybe it's their first job as it is yours if you're joining them. Learn how to deal with this so that when it's your time, you've been through that, you've seen how it goes. It increases your odds of success by an order of magnitude, for sure. So that's my first advice. My second advice for people who actually they don't see anything else beyond building their own business, or they've started already as students, even before uni. Get as many advisors as possible. Soak this type of knowledge and learnings from people that have been doing this for a few years, that have been exposed to this situation, this reality, and have as many lunches, breakfasts, dinners, be as much time possible with these people learning, so that you can use these learnings into building your own company, and make sure that the problems you're tackling are actually relevant, that if you do solve just a small percentage of that problem, you can positively affect a lot of people in the process.